everyone, welcome to this brand new edition of Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. As always, we have a packed show for you with all the top news stories from around the globe. Let's get started with our big focus tonight. The Israel-Hamas war has taken a dramatic turn in a development that has sent shockwaves through the world and plunged the Middle East into a much deeper crisis and a far more dangerous phase. Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh has been assassinated. And even more shockingly, this happened in the Iranian capital, Tehran, in the early hours of Wednesday morning. The attack on Haniyeh, the public face of Hamas, has been blamed on Israel by Hamas as well as its backer, Iran. Israel has refused to comment. The event threatens to further destabilize the region and jeopardize ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas over the war in Gaza that has already gone on for close to 10 months. The key question being asked is this: what happens to the Gaza hostage and ceasefire negotiations? It was Ismail Haniyeh who led Hamas's political operations from overseas. He was acting as a key interlocutor with international mediators. And the even bigger question being asked is, will this daring strike carried out on Iranian soil, a sworn enemy of Israel, prove to be an inflection point in the Gaza war and the catalyst for a potential all-out regional conflagration? How did the events unfold? Ismail Haniyeh was in Tehran for the inauguration of Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and was staying at a residence for veterans in the north of the city. According to Iranian state-run media outlet IRNA, around 2 a.m. local time, an airborne guided projectile targeted the place where Haniyeh was staying. In the attack, his bodyguard was also killed. IRNA says further investigations are underway to determine the details of the operation and the position from where the projectile was fired. Hamas has lashed out at Israel, calling the attack a Zionist strike and a grave escalation in its decades-long conflict with the Jewish nation. One Hamas official said the group is ready to pay various prices and that the moment of truth has come, adding, "This assassination will not achieve the goals of the occupation and will not push Hamas to surrender." Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has said, "You killed our dear guest in our house and now have paved the way for your harsh punishment." The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said in a statement, and I quote, "Undoubtedly, this crime of the Zionist regime will face a harsh and painful response from the powerful and great front of the resistance, especially Islamic Iran." Israel's military has said it does not respond to reports in the foreign media. Just who was Ismail Haniyeh? Why was he such an important figure in Hamas, and what impact can his killing have on the ongoing Gaza war? 62-year-old Haniyeh was born in a refugee camp near Gaza City and joined Hamas in the late 1980s during the first Intifada, or uprising. As Hamas grew in power, Haniyeh rose through the ranks, being appointed part of a secret collective leadership in 2004. He became the political chief of the militant group in 2017. The following year, he was named a specially designated global terrorist by the United States. Despite that designation, and unlike Hamas's military leadership, Haniyeh continued to travel globally, meeting with world figures as the political head of the organization. Significantly, during the war with Israel in Gaza, Haniyeh had taken a central role in hostage and ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas. Haniyeh was in touch with mediators in Qatar and Egypt as recently as early July. Those talks now hang in the balance. Observers say his death could complicate the mediation talks, as Haniyeh was instrumental in getting certain breakthroughs in negotiations and, along with the military leader of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, was a key decision maker. Qatar's Prime Minister, Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, has said, "How can mediation succeed when one party assassinates the negotiator on the other side?" He's called Haniyeh's killing a heinous crime and a dangerous escalation. Leaders from around the region have weighed in, with some condemning the killing and voicing alarm about its potential fallout. Palestinian leaders, including the Palestinian president and prime minister, who come from factions that have deep historical rivalries with Hamas, have condemned the killing and called for Palestinian national unity. The White House has so far not commented. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said the US was not aware of or involved in the killing of Haniyeh. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said he does not think that a larger war in the Middle East is inevitable, but that the United States would help defend Israel if the latter were attacked. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has strongly condemned the killing, calling it a treacherous assassination and a despicable act. Russia has called Haniyeh's killing an absolutely unacceptable political assassination and warned of dangerous consequences for the entire region. China too has condemned the killing. Iran-backed militant groups have voiced sympathy, including Hezbollah, based in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen. News of Haniyeh's killing came just hours after Israel said it had killed Hezbollah's most senior military official, Fuad Shukr, in a drone strike in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Shukr is the most high-ranking Hezbollah official to have been assassinated since 2016, and his killing marks the most serious Israeli escalation since confrontations between Hezbollah and Israel began last October. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, has said Israel does not seek war but is preparing for all possibilities. So what happens next? From the Israeli point of view, there is a major victory in this. After all, its mission was to neutralize Hamas. It's been one of the primary stated objectives behind launching the Operation Swords of Iran. I beg your pardon, the 10-month-old war in Gaza. Haniyeh is the most highly placed Hamas figure to have been killed so far. The assassination gives a lifeline to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been in the line of fire and facing questions about his leadership. His very political survival has been at stake. From Hamas's perspective, this is a major provocation, since Haniyeh was the head of the political bureau, the public face of the group, and was negotiating the terms of the hostage deal and the ceasefire. Another very important message that has gone out is that for Hamas, even Iran is not safe. The fact that the targeted strike took place in Tehran is being seen as a major escalatory move both by Hamas and Iran. Remember, in April this year, Iran and Israel had exchanged a round of missile and drone attacks. Temperatures had cooled since then, but this assassination has the potential to trigger further hostilities and has created a highly volatile, dangerous and unpredictable scenario. What will the United States do in this situation? It has been working behind the scenes to prevent Israel from launching a full-scale war on Hezbollah. But what happens if Iran decides to move up the escalation ladder? Is the Middle East now a veritable tinder box? Could we see a full-blown and direct conflict between Iran and Israel? Could multiple other players in the region get sucked into a wider war? Just what will it take to douse the flames in West Asia?
Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated at around 2 a.m. on Wednesday. That's according to Iranian media, who also say he was staying at a special residence for war veterans in North Tehran. Hamas called the strike a severe escalation that would not achieve its goals. A senior Hamas official claimed Israel was responsible, though Israel gave no immediate comment. Iran's Revolutionary Guards confirmed Haniyeh's death in Tehran, only hours after he attended a swearing-in ceremony for the country's new president. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas strongly condemned the killing of the Hamas leader in comments reported by Iran state media. Meanwhile, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said he was seeking to cool rising tensions in the region.
I don't think war is inevitable. I maintain that. I think there's always room and opportunities for diplomacy, and I'd like to see parties pursue those opportunities.
However, Austin also said the United States would help defend Israel if it were attacked. The news comes less than 24 hours after Israel claimed to have killed the Hezbollah commander it said was behind a deadly strike in the Israel-occupied Golan Heights, complicating chances for a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. Senior Hamas official Sami Abu Zuhri told Reuters it is a grave escalation intended to undermine Hamas's resolve, adding that the group are confident of victory. Haniyeh, who is normally based in Qatar, has been the face of Hamas's international diplomacy as the war set off by the Hamas-led attack on Israel on October the 7th has raged in Gaza, where 3 of his sons were killed in an Israeli airstrike. Appointed as Hamas's leader in 2017, he often travelled between Turkey and Qatar for ceasefire talks or to talk to Hamas's ally Iran. The International Criminal Court Prosecutor Office requested an arrest warrant for him over alleged war crimes. At the same time, it issued a similar request against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, of course, I've seen the reports, and all I can tell you right now is I think nothing takes away from the importance of, as I said a moment ago, getting to the ceasefire, which is manifestly in the interests of the hostages and bringing them home. It's manifestly in the interests of Palestinians who are suffering terribly every single day, children, women, men in Gaza who've been caught in this crossfire of Hamas's making. It's profoundly in the interest of trying to put things on a better path, not only in Gaza, but actually throughout the region, because so much is tied to what's happening in Gaza right now.
Today, in addition to this great loss that we lost in martyrs and wounded in this area, there is another attack now on the other side of the Israeli-Arab conflict, where Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was targeted in Tehran also. This confirms 2 things. 1, that this enemy demands war, and we are up for it. God willing, we are up for it. And it confirms another thing, that we will continue as a country, people, resistance, and battlefront against the Israeli army to take up our duties in full, to confront it and prevent it from achieving its goals through this attack. We are highly concerned about the incident and firmly oppose and condemn the assassination. We are deeply concerned that this incident may lead to further destabilization of the regional situation. China has always advocated resolving regional disputes through negotiation and dialogue. Gaza should achieve a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire as soon as possible to avoid further escalation of conflict and confrontation.
All right, so what happens next? Everyone is going to watch the situation with bated breath. Let's put some of these critical questions that this development has given rise to our panel of experts. Joining me on Global Lens tonight is Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav, Defence and Strategic Affairs Analyst. Major Dan Pfefferman, formerly with the Israel Defence Forces and currently the Executive Director of Sharaka, also joins us on the show. And in a moment, we are hoping to be joined by Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, former Indian diplomat. Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav, let me ask you this, sir. For close to 10 months now, we have asked one question ad nauseum. Is there a real danger of the Middle East getting sucked into a wider regional conflagration? Following the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, to even ask if the Middle East is a tinderbox sounds like a rhetorical question. What I want to ask you is this: in your assessment, how far would Iran be willing to go as it has vowed revenge against Israel following Haniyeh's killing?
Firstly, Neha, good evening to you and all the viewers. And I agree with you, it is an inflecting point in the political mosaic of Middle East. That is number one. Second thing, coming to your question per se, I don't think Iran has got capability to escalate it beyond a point. Iran firstly is located far away from Israel. So any ground action by Iran is unlikely. Moreover, all the neighbors that we have today around Israel, they're all friendly countries. Look at Jordan, look at Egypt. They're not interested in escalating the war or joining this war. As far as Lebanon and Hezbollah is concerned, they do not have the large-scale conventional capabilities. These are guerrilla forces. They can carry out hit-and-run kind of an operations and nothing beyond that. And if you look at the pattern of Hezbollah, they have been firing missiles and rockets into Israeli territories and nothing beyond that. There have not been any raids or any crossing of borders and carrying out any kind of action. So I don't think Iran, other than a very hard diplomatic furor, they have any capability. They will fire few rockets. You see, in April, 13th April, when the top military commanders were killed in Damascus, they said the same kind of language. And they only fired about 200 to 300 missiles, and thereafter they kept quiet about it. So therefore, I don't think the stage is set for a regional conflict or this conflict spilling out. Moreover, the way I'm looking at this entire episode, Israel / US, they have given number of messages. Message to Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi is, now you please lay off. Now you've seen our capability. We can hit you at time and place of our choosing when we want. We have the political will and the military capability to strike you wherever you are if we wish to. That is number one. Second point, second message they have given out to Iran, who happens to be your caretaker. Now they do not have capability to protect you. So they have killed the gentleman in Tehran, and at a time when the new president has taken chair. So there is a very subtle message that is going out. As far as Iran is concerned, they have also, the new president has been given a message, look, we have the capability, and if we wish, we will strike. So you better be on lookout. And the main issue, the overall is in the geopolitical scenario in Middle East, US and Israel, they are conveying a message, can now kindly do the thing the way we want, kindly fall into line. And as far as Iran is concerned, their desire is to see to it the nuclear program gets stalled, and Iran agrees to the terms and conditions of the nuclear agreements which earlier democratic government had arrived at. So there are a number of messages flying around, and this is a point where the entire politics is likely to change. There is unlikely to be any major military offensive onto Israel. Israel is capable of defending itself. Israel has got military power, conventional, as well as also the nuclear umbrella that they have. So they are quite safe. Only thing what they are looking at is, in future, the Hamas, which is the immediate problem, they must agree to a ceasefire on Israeli terms. That means, number one, all the hostages are returned straight away. Number two, the entire leadership of Hamas, they surrender and they agree to terms and conditions of Israel. This is what I can see.
Okay, very interesting, though many are wondering what actually happens to the hostage release and ceasefire negotiations, considering that Haniyeh is the man who was widely believed to have been leading those negotiations and had also reportedly managed to achieve certain breakthroughs. You know, many have said, and I couldn't agree more, that the new Iranian president has probably had the worst possible first day at the office that anyone can ever have. And you're right. This strike sends out a series of very important messages, one of which is that even Iran is not safe anymore for Hamas and its leadership. But I want to ask my Israeli guest a different question. Major Dan Pfefferman, let me come to you now. Now, I know that Israel has neither confirmed nor denied this killing, but come on, let's face it. We all believe that it is Israel which is behind the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. Many, in fact, are calling it a big victory for Israel and its military. Many are calling it a lifeline for your beleaguered Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll come to that in a moment. But the larger question I want to put to you is this, that while the target of this killing may have been a top Hamas leader, the assassination was carried out on Iranian soil. Do you not believe that this can act as a grave enough provocation for Iran to now directly get involved in a war in which so far only its proxies were engaging with Israel?
I think it's a big statement, Neha, that this was carried out on Iranian soil and not anywhere else. Of course, part of it is that Haniyeh has been living in Qatar in 7-star hotels while his people suffer the consequences of Hamas's actions. But this is a strike. This is a signal to Iran as much as it is to Hamas, maybe even more than it is Hamas. This is a signal to Iran. You asked the general, and I agree with his statement. The region has been in an escalation for the last, 8 months now since the October 7th attack. The October 7th attack was an escalation, was a call to war by the Iranian-led radical axis in the region. And whether Hamas conducted the October 7th attack with Iranian knowledge, without Iranian knowledge, with Iranian coordination or not, what is clear is that as of October 8th, the Iranian-led regional axis has come into full swing and full escalation against Israel, which was not involved in any kind of military activities in Lebanon or in Yemen or in Iraq or in Syria or in Gaza. And so this is the escalation that Iran and its axis started on October 7th. And then the rest of the Iranian axis joined October 8th. As the general pointed out correctly, Iran does not fight conventional wars. Iran does not have the capacity to launch airstrikes at Israel. We saw back in April when Iran claiming it was responding to the supposed Israeli targeted strike on IRGC commanders in Syria, launched 300 projectiles at Israel, all of which, except one, was intercepted. This is the way Iran has waged its all-out war against Israel since October 7th through its proxies in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen. And so it is ridiculous to think that Iran will escalate more. And it is a ridiculous notion to let Iran just sit on the sidelines, supposedly unscathed, not paying any price for this massive provocation against Israel, against the region. And so this strike on Haniyeh, which is attributed to Israel did not take credit for this. That's probably a good thing. This is a warning to Iran that you are vulnerable, you are weak, we can strike you, supposedly, wherever you are and whoever's in your territory. No one is safe. And what we have learned from 20 plus years of regional conflict with Iran, whether I'm talking about Israel, whether I'm talking about the United States, or whether I'm talking about the various moderate actors around the Middle East who seek stability, the only way that Iran and its radical jihadist proxies respond to anything is through concerted military, economic, and diplomatic pressure. And that is the only way to get them to back off. Their strategic goals remain absolutely consistent and radical. These are jihadist actors who seek to drag the entire region into a war. And it is up to the moderate actors who seek stability and prosperity and regional cooperation, like Israel, and like now.
You know, what's interesting is that as you accuse Iran of, sort of dragging other players into the conflict, and yes, it is widely believed that Iran masterminded the 7th October attacks in Israel. With these latest developments, many countries in the Middle East are now accusing Netanyahu of exactly the same, of sucking other regional players into a wider conflagration. As a matter of fact, most Middle East countries have condemned Israel for this. Let me go back to Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav. General Yadav, yes, we all remember what happened in the month of April when Iran and Israel exchanged a round of missile and drone attacks. There wasn't really much damage caused on either side and temperatures cooled off. Of course, the United States was working very hard behind the scenes to ensure that matters did not escalate beyond a point. But given what's happened now, the killing of Haniyeh, as I keep saying, on Iranian soil, and the threats that are now being issued by the IRGC and the Supreme Leader of Iran, Do you not believe, sir, that there is in fact a possibility of Israel facing a multi-front war? It's already been waging a war against Hamas for the last 10 months. And while, yes, there have been hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah also since the 7th of October, fact of the matter is that if there were to be a full-scale conflict between the two entities, Israel could find that Hezbollah is a far more powerful adversary than Hamas is. And if Iran does decide to get directly involved, this could in fact become a multi-front war. Is that not a real concern?
You see,
Not to mention the Houthis, who are also in the mix.
Pattern has not changed. You see, on one side, northern side is Hezbollah, and Hamas is onto the western side. These two fronts, Israel is capable of handling it. That is number one. And I said it earlier that Hezbollah doesn't have large-scale conventional capability that they can launch a ground offensive on Israel. On the other side, Israel has got sufficiently large conventional force and the weapon and equipment, and they're technologically very advanced to take on to this. So two-front war is for which Israel is always prepared. As regards to Iran joining this conflict, you see, look at the distances that they have to travel and the kind of operation logistics which is involved. Getting the Iranian forces coming all the way from Iran, or more than 1,500 kilometers coming in here, they can be intercepted anywhere. Moreover, by the time they'll come in here, their local logistics and other things, it takes time to build it up, and would Israel, with their technological insight into it and battlefield transparency, they will ever permit this. So I don't think there is any feasibility of an all-out ground war. Yes, there are going to be exchange of missiles and rockets like it had happened earlier. Even in April, when Iran fired about 300 missiles, Israel retaliated. They fired only one shot, and that too next to their nuclear plant, thereby conveying a message, look, we have capability, and if we want, next time we are going to destroy your nuclear plants or other strategic targets. So I don't think there's going to be a escalation in the conventional field. There's not going, other than the rocket and missile attacks and diplomatic utterances, I don't think anything is going to...
And before I take a break, sir, may I ask you this question? Since you're a military man, not a diplomat, do you believe the United States and Antony Blinken when he says, oh, we were not aware that this was going to happen?
Well, I can't comment definitely on that, but I presume they were certainly in knowledge. Last week in Netanyahu, he was there in US, and I'm surely this point must have come in because this was one of the major point of discussion. And the way I'm looking at it is strategically, it is a master stroke that Israel has carried out. With one strike, killing one top leader of Hamas, they have conveyed multiple messages to everybody. Okay. It is not only West Asia, Iran and their proxies. It is also the rest of the world. They are trying to convey, look, we have political will and military capability.
And we will stop at nothing. And what's interesting in all of this is not just the reactions that have come in from Middle Eastern countries. Russia and China have also strongly condemned the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. That's where things stand. I need to take a quick break here on Global Lens, but don't go anywhere. We'll continue this conversation on the other side. We also have Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar with us. We'll go across to him in just a moment.
Hey, careful, huh? My daddy got it from abroad. Hey, disaster! How will you pay for the loss now?
In stock market, you should take risk as per your capacity and knowledge. Trade in options very carefully.
Wow, Dikra! Absolutely perfect. Take risk with full understanding.
Invest kar. How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces? That dead bodies surface, but not the living people.
Cooking is an act of love. The first act of love we receive from our mothers in the families.
Modern Indian food is all about contemporary and innovative approach to traditional Indian cooking.
Representation it's also important, you know.
I want to wear this white coat every day and then be a chef.
There are stories. If the name of whiskey is Indri, then there is a whole story behind that.
Cooking food is like a therapy, and eating one is like a pleasure I can give it to myself. With Lounge Nights, I'm on a journey to celebrate and recognize the best food and nightlife establishments in various cities across India.
Radical presents Lounge Nights every Saturday and Sunday only on News9 Live.
इस खेल में अब खेला होगा हर नहले पे दहला होगा ये बड़ा है स्टेज बड़ा है पूरा भारत साथ खड़ा है साथ खड़ा है गेम बड़ा है retrieval like a rap pass setting up the trap kick it hard in the ball chuck there for the ball Shaka day for the ball. Shaka day for the ball. Shaka day for the ball.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. We're discussing the fallout of the assassination of Hamas's political leader Ismail Haniyeh. Let me now go across to Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar. Ambassador Sajjanhar, this is a development that has really sent shockwaves through the Middle East and indeed the world. What do you think Haniyeh's assassination means for the region? And I want to ask you two pointed questions. One, do you believe that this actually gives a political lifeline to Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been in the line of fire for a long time now for his failure to bring back the remaining hostages, also for his failure to even prevent the 7th October attacks in the first place and his growing unpopularity at home? Secondly, how do you think the United States is looking at this entire situation? Because they have an election less than 4 months away, and I do not believe that Americans have an appetite for yet another war. What do you think is going on behind the scenes?
Okay, thank you very much, Neha. To come to your last question first, I totally agree with you that I don't think that the Americans have an appetite for war at this moment. I think they were quite, at least pushing for it, if not entirely hopeful, when Netanyahu didn't mention the deal in his address to the U.S., joint session of the U.S. Congress. Then, but still, the United States was pushing, and particularly as far as the election is concerned, that there would be a deal soon and hostages would be released, so that even if the deal is temporary to begin with, that it could be converted into a permanent deal. So I think that possibility has receded. That has gone back a little bit. So the United States definitely does not want, this to convert into a regional conflict. My own assessment is that unless there is an accidental event development takes place, I don't think that there is a very great likelihood of this conflagration, expanding into a regional conflict, because neither Israel nor for that matter Iran directly, personally, nor any of the other regional countries, whether it is UAE, Saudi Arabia, it is Jordan, Egypt, none of them want this expansion of this conflict. So definitely that is where I think we have to, of course, discuss what is the impact. I think it's a huge provocation. It's a huge provocation for Iran. It's a huge provocation for Hamas. And since it is to Iran, so all the other the proxy enterprises of Iran, whether it is the Hezbollah or Houthis or Islamic Jihad or others who are based in Iraq or Syria, etc. So they will be asked to get even more active and start working on that. But I don't think any of the regular governments or countries in the region or outside will, Turkey might continue to give such threats and all that sort of things. Maybe it has been emboldened by what it was able to achieve in Nagorno-Karabakh and in Libya, but I don't think that it is going to go through with that. Now, on the question of Netanyahu, whether it is, it'll give him a lease of life, I think so. I think it's a shot in the arm for Netanyahu. I think the ignominy of 7th October, that, failure of intelligence, military failure of such a huge proportion that Israel has not experienced in the past. But, the manner in which the precision attack on Haniyeh in Iran, in Tehran, I think that has sent out a very strong message, and it has catapulted, it has enhanced Israeli position, reputation, and Netanyahu's position, I think, in the region and definitely around the world. And I'm sure within his own country that there would be a little more confidence that he is able to conduct the war and take decisions and take action.
Interesting. You believe this is a shot in the arm and a fresh lease of life for Netanyahu. Let me put this question to our Israeli guest. Dan, it is no secret that Netanyahu has been facing a lot of anger at home. He has been more unpopular than ever before in his entire political career. A lot of anger has been directed towards him in recent months for his failure to bring back the remaining hostages from Gaza, and also for his government's failure to prevent the 7th October attacks in the first place. What are the reactions in Israel to Haniyeh's assassination? Do you agree with Ambassador Sajanhar and others who say that, Netanyahu is probably now going to have more breathing space? People are now going to have a little more confidence in his leadership during this ongoing conflict? Or do you in fact believe that the worry amongst the families of the hostages could grow? Because there are those who are saying that bringing back the hostages could now get tougher with Haniyeh's assassination.
Yeah, that's a great question, Neha. And I think both of the things you said are true and live at the same time in different time scales. So what we have here is a prime minister and a government that's frankly failed on so many levels since the morning of October 7th until today. Netanyahu, of course, if anything, is a master of improving his performance the closer he gets to elections and staying politically alive no matter what the polls say. I would be very cautious, and I've heard a lot of conspiracy theorists around the region, around the world, and even inside Israel, I would be very cautious to blame him for creating stunts or trying to drag the country into war in order to keep himself in power. I don't think he is someone who would stoop to that level. However, the intelligence coup that is the assassination of Haniyeh, if it is indeed Israel that's behind it, and of course the killing of Shukar, the Hezbollah number 2, after they murdered 12 Israeli children in the Golan Heights, those are seen as serious achievements. In the short term, Of course, this will make negotiations and the hostage efforts difficult. However, what we have seen since the very beginning of this war is that Hamas and the radical axis led by Iran really only respond to pressure. And so when they feel they have their hand on the advantage, they actually step away from concessions and from pragmatism, and they only respond when they feel there is real pressure, military, diplomatic, economic pressure on them. The hostage families are going to behave the way the hostage families behave, and I don't blame them. I would hate to be in such a position where my loved ones were being held in the torture of Hamas captivity for the last 8 months, and so they will pressure and they will be upset by this. But in the long run, creating pressure on Hamas, on Hezbollah, on Iran itself and the Iranian axis is the only way to get them to back down and force them into tactical concessions. And to weaken them is the only way to bring about stability in the region. You mentioned earlier, I believe, to the ambassador who was speaking, Americans in the West generally don't have an appetite for war. Israelis also don't have an appetite for war. But the irony of this moment, and when facing radical, nihilistic, jihadist actors in the region, is indeed the only way to prevent a war is to be prepared for it. And that is the only way to get these radical actors to back down and make tactical concessions. Of course, the only way to defeat them in the long term is through war, through military pressure. And as they have said, as Haniyeh himself said, and as all of Hamas's leaders have said, they will commit October 7th time and again, as so long as they are allowed to do so. And so pressuring them, assassinating them, diplomatic pressure, and not giving into this foolishness that maybe they are pragmatic, maybe they have reasonable demands. The Orwellian word twists and games that they use, that somehow it's Israel that's causing escalation in the region when they are the ones who have been causing escalation since October 7th. Let's not fall prey to that. All peoples and countries and societies that enjoy and appreciate democracy and freedom and liberalism for their countries need to stand up to these. And unfortunately, the only way to do this is by at least being prepared to go to war, if not actually conducting and following through with this. And I think targeted assassinations is one very smart way to do this. And Israel showed its superiority here.
Okay, Israel showed its superiority. Targeted assassinations is a smart way of achieving its military objectives. You know, I don't think anybody would disagree with you on that, Dan. However, the fact remains that over the last few months, there has been a lot of anger in the international community towards Israel over the growing death toll in Gaza. And let me also remind you and our viewers that a very large section of Americans, in fact, are very unhappy with the Biden administration over its unstinting support to Israel's war in Gaza. In fact, just the other day, our Prime Minister met, the Vice President, Kamala Harris, who, as we now know, is the Democratic presidential nominee. Her message, I think, was quite clear that as much as the United States wants the hostages to return home, it also wants to see an end to the war, it wants to see a ceasefire, and it does not want to see more suffering of the Palestinians. I think your staunchest ally has also sent out that message to you time and again. But let me come back to the point of the discussion. Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav, let me ask you this question, sir. Yes, the primary objective of the war launched by Israel against Hamas was to wipe out Hamas and its leadership, as they have put it. And therefore, Israel thinks it is well within its rights to go after a top Hamas leader, even if they had to do that within the borders of Iran, I beg your pardon. My question, however, is that, this is a grave provocation for both Hamas and Iran. I think we can all agree on that. Having provoked them in the manner that Israel has by taking out a top Hamas leader, how will Israel now really hope to bring the remaining hostages back? Do you not believe that this could be a major setback to those negotiations? Also, on the point of Iran not having the capability to launch a full-scale war against Israel, especially given that Israel does enjoy the full backing of the United States. My question still remains. This is a rogue country that you're talking about. You know, it may not want to engage in conventional warfare, but how do you make a country like Iran fall in line? After all, isn't it true that it is Iran that masterminded the 7th October terror attacks in Israel in the first place?
You see, coming to your first point, as regards to assassination of the top leadership of Hamas, that option was available to Israel from the day one, but they chose to exercise it after a lot of strategic patience, when the things were going beyond their expectation. You see, they were negotiating with Hamas for a very respectful and mutually beneficial kind of ceasefire. And they had two objectives. Number one, return of the hostages, because the government is under a lot of pressure. And the second one is to elimination of Hamas. Now, Hamas represents an ideology, so it is very difficult to remove that, but at least by targeting the top leadership, a message is going around to look, you better fall in line. Do not escalate this conflict any further. It is not in your interest, it is not in interest of the Palestinian or anybody else in the region. Therefore, kindly come to the negotiating table. Now, by this action, this assassination, Israel has attained a political position of strength. Now, in the future negotiations, they will talk in a manner that Hamas is made to agree to their proposals, and one of the proposals would be a return of the hostages and all of them together, which was not the case earlier, because Hamas was ready for ceasefire, but under certain conditions, and they wanted to return the hostages in a number of ships. So therefore, there is going to be something positive at the end of the day, but immediately as of now, I don't think negotiations will take place in the near future, but ultimately they will take place, and Israel will have a strong position of strength, and they'll be able to take their hostages back. In a worst case scenario, what can happen as part of the revenge, they probably try and torture these hostages, make a demonstration of it. Now that is something which we have to observe. But otherwise, overall, there is going to be a ceasefire sooner or later, and it is likely to be on terms of Israel, and also taking care of sensitivities of Hamas.
Okay. You have an interesting take on this. Time will tell how things pan out. But Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, I'll give you the last word on this, and I want to ask you the same question because I'm quite intrigued by what these developments really mean and what their fallout can be. My question simply is, how do you bring back the remaining hostages from Gaza after taking out a top Hamas leader? Is that really the way that Israel hopes to get Hamas leadership to surrender? Because I don't see that happening. And also on the issue of Iran not wanting to engage in a direct conflict with Israel backed by the United States, while that may be true to a large extent, but given how Iran has operated in the shadows for years and years now, how do you make a country like that fall in line?
I think basically, the way I see it is that as a result of this attack, the pressure on Hamas will definitely increase. At the moment, whether it is Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, etc., they have been sort of, hit so badly that they will want to take revenge, as Khamenei has said. They will want to retaliate against, Israel. But then they will also realize the limitations that they have in terms of, doing anything more than what they have been doing. So, the Hamas leadership might not surrender. Yahya Sinwar, who's there in Gaza, he might not surrender. But, those people might, it'll give them the indication, number one, about the capacity and capability of Israel and about its seriousness and determination. So both of them, and I think if the message goes through, they will flee, they will leave, and I think that will make the whole process of, after the slight bit of hiatus, because I don't see anything positive happening over the next week, 10 days or something. I think it'll have to play itself out. And then after that, we sort of, get back to business, backdoor channel talking as has been done, whether it is Qatar, Egypt, US, etc. They get into play. And I think hostages will be up front in terms of what needs to be done. And I think under these circumstances, Israel having had a very significant achievement to its side of getting rid of Haniyeh, could also be more inclined towards getting some sort of agreement, ceasefire. But of course, this is all speculation, and time will tell. I don't think it will take all that long, really.
Okay. Well, the next few days and weeks are going to be very crucial for the Middle East. Could Haniyeh's assassination turn out to be an inflection point? What happens next? Is West Asia today a veritable tinderbox? I guess that is the concern everyone has. This is a story we'll track very closely here on Global Lens. On that note, Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav, Major Dan Pfefferman and Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, thank you so much to all three of you for joining me on Global Lens tonight. Well, our next story is also on the Israel-Hamas war, but it's on a dimension that you may not have heard of before. As Israel's war in Gaza rages, a growing number of parents in Israel are demanding sperm from the bodies of their sons who were killed in the war to be extracted and frozen. Well, that's what a new media report claims. Since Hamas's attacks on the 7th of October and Israel's brutal retaliation, over 400 Israelis have been killed. Of these, sperm has been retrieved from 170 men, both civilians and soldiers, according to the Israeli Health Ministry. This marks a 15-time rise as compared to previous years. The process involves making a small incision in the testicle to take a piece of tissue from which live sperm cells can be extracted and frozen. The chances of successful retrieval are high within 24 hours after death, but the sperm cell can live for up to 72 hours in the body of the deceased. To ease the process for the grieving families, some rules for the procedure have been relaxed, but families are still frustrated over the lengthy legal processes. In October, the Israeli Health Ministry removed a mandatory court order request for parents to use the procedure to extract sperm. While it has become easier to freeze the sperm, widows or parents who want to use it in the conception of a child will have to prove in court that the dead man actually wanted to have children. Parents say the whole process can take years. The first Israeli couple to preserve and use their dead son's sperm did so back in 2002 after their son, a soldier, was shot dead by a Palestinian sniper in the Gaza Strip. Their granddaughter is now 10 years old. While experts believe the process has great meaning to bereaved families, they also say that the current rules have created a conflict in the case of single men, as their desire to have a child has to be proven in court for the procedure to be carried out. Currently, Israeli lawmakers are attempting to draft a bill to create clearer and more comprehensive rules for the process, seeing the high number of deaths in the ongoing war in Gaza. And as we wrap up this edition of Global Lens, let's turn our attention to France. And no, we are not talking about the Paris Olympics. French President Emmanuel Macron is in the eye of a storm. Pictures of the president tightly embracing his sports minister, Amélie Oudéa-Castéra, during the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics have gone viral on the social media. The sports minister is also seen planting a kiss close to Macron's neck. Gabriel Attal, France's Prime Minister, can be seen looking the other way as Oudéa-Castéra embraced the French president. The viral pictures have caused quite a stir in France, with many social media users comparing the affectionate display to a lover's embrace. One user wrote, "Gabriel Attal, he pretends to look elsewhere, he doesn't know where to stand." Another said, "It's my lover that I'm kissing like this. Embarrassing." A third user wrote, "I find this photo indecent. It's not worthy of a president and a minister." The picture has become a major talking point on social media after a French magazine carried it first. The magazine called the kiss strange and claimed that sports minister Emily Udia Castera likes to draw attention to herself. As we mentioned, the picture of the two leaders caught in an embrace was captured during the opening ceremony of the Olympics. The Paris Olympics opened in a spectacular and unprecedented ceremony on the river Seine last Friday. The parade saw 7,500 competitors travel down a 6-kilometer stretch of the Seine on a flotilla of 85 boats. The opening ceremony also marked a major boost for President Emmanuel Macron after 2 turbulent months that saw him call snap parliamentary election over the prospect of the far-right winning and forming a new government. But, well, clearly this is a controversy that the French president did not need at this point in time. That's all the time we have on this edition of Global Lens. If you have been, thanks so much for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow. Good night.
Over 20 healthcare trailblazers and leaders, 6 engaging sessions, 6 hours of engrossing conversation.